Screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good. Okay. So why don't we start, even if people are still coming in? I think we should respect time. Welcome everyone to our third session this year as part of our 10-step guide to return to the workforce or do a career reinvention. And we came up with the 3 C's when we started and ahead. My name is Britta Moos-Walter, and so we have the clarify your career journey. We have create your personal brand on the base of your findings in clarity, and then connect with your network, your professional network, and return. But this is a very short 3 C's, and we enhanced it to a 10-step guide, which then is a bit more comprehensive. And today I have the, I'm very excited to co-facilitate this workshop together with Rajiv Desai, who joined me and prepared together with me the search session, aligning the external research and personal values to your next career milestone. And what does that mean? Let me just see. So that means we will, this is a third part of the clarify. We had already in, when we started in January, we had the clarity, your career goals together with Amina, and look into it with resilience. We had also in February the neuroscience of well-being, to also look into work-life harmony and understand better the neuroscience of it. And today we have the third 3, which is a bit more the third part of the clarity part, which is a bit more practical as we put it today. We are going to reconnect with the 3 C's. We are going to envision your future self. We are going to align the job hunt research with your skills and values. And we will also find to look into identify and use transferable skills. And then we will have a wrap up together. But before we are going and jumping into it, I would like to now have Rajiv introduce himself, as he has a very interesting and a great career in diversity, equity, and inclusion, but also far beyond it. And he reinvented himself as well, as he relocated during pandemic from the US to Berlin, where he's based now. So warm welcome to you, Rajiv.
Thanks so much, Britta. Really excited to be here on this session. I just wanted to quickly say this topic is near and dear to my heart, which is why when Carol and Britta asked me if I would help with the session, as Britta said, not only have I changed my career track a few times, I was also fortunate enough to take a bit of a gap about 10 years ago, and that small gap became a 1-year gap. And so I was also navigating, trying to get back into the job force and, talking to recruiters and trying to explain to companies why I took a bit of a time off and a gap. And as we all know, the psychology behind it is quite hard, right? So we have to even further kind of be prepared for that. So whether it's a career gap, whether it's a sabbatical, whether it's a parental leave, we all know some of the challenges that comes with taking such breaks. So hopefully some of these resources and tools will help you fine-tune that process. So thanks, Britta.
Yeah, great. It's really great to have you. Also was already in the preparation, because we really could bring in both our perspectives, which is very important. Today we think it's very important for you also to know yourself as well as your industry. And we, before we go and deep dive a bit more into the research part, we would also like you to share with us in the chat, as we are very curious about your stories and values, what kind of personal values are driving your next career steps? Because we believe in not just applying to any position, but really reflecting before where you are coming from, and then build up your job hunt and reach out and do a more structured approach. So please use the chat ideally to put in some of the values you could think about. Can be any value which comes into your head, which you think should also be reflected by an employer, by a position, by an impact you want to create. Rajiv, what were your thoughts when you looked into career reinvention? Did you have any?
It's funny, my friends and family always make fun of me because I always have like a short list of values that I want to use as much as possible, because it is a privilege to be able to have a job search that can be aligned to your values as well, right? That's like the ideal situation. But yeah, when I moved to Berlin, I was looking at a few different, factors and values. But for me, things like an international community, a sense of diversity, public transport is a huge value for me, right? I don't like driving cars. And so something as simple as, public transport is important to me. So as I kind of grow, I use different kind of values filters to decide what kind of organization, what city, what kind of a team do I want to be in? And again, sometimes there's a balance between that, but I think as we grow, those values also change over time. So I'm seeing some really good responses in the chat. So thank you for
definitely
everyone's participation. A job where the company is doing good, no harm to the planet. These are great. I'm seeing a lot of similarities in a small group as well. Creativity. I think the theme of C's is continuing, Britta. So you get a lot of C words here: courage, creativity, circular economy. Looks like C is the theme of the day today. Super. Thank you everyone for participating on that question. I can quickly talk about the next slide, Britta, if you want to move ahead. As we were designing this session, we wanted to keep our values at our core, right? And then as we were designing it, we also recognized that everybody has different values, right? Some can be very people-centric, some can be planet-centric, some can be, environment-centric. So some of the resources and the tips that we're going to be sharing in today's session very broadly speak to this idea of people, planet, profit, right? And I think, Laura, you kind of alluded to this in your comment in the chat, where a job where the company is doing good, no harm to the planet, circular economy. So, while we know you all may be at different levels of your search and your values, we are kind of putting on this people, planet, profit hat as we navigate through this session, right? And we have included some examples at the back of the deck. So you have a few links to kind of explore additional resources. It's not by all means, the grand list that will help you from start to finish, but if other ideas come up, you'll know where to find us, and we're happy to help you after the session as well. But just wanted to present this framework as the kind of overarching way that we look at broader sets of values as we fine tune our individual job searches. Back to you, Britta.
Yeah. Okay. So why are we, looking at clarity so much, and why is it so important for us? Because we would love you to first start within yourself, and envision not only where you have been and where you are at the moment, but also more importantly, envision yourself, you know, how could your future look like career-wise, your personal life, especially if you are in the process of reinventing yourself or you are in a relaunch process. So we believe it's very, very important that you also connect and stay connected with your values during this, you know, process of relaunching or reinventing yourself in all areas we are going to tap into right now. We came up with and we have an hour and we try to make it, you know, on the one hand side, practical for you, also something you can carry away with and use more. But we came up with the 5 tips for as a guideline to envision your future self. And I think, Rajiv, you wanted to start with the first one, isn't it?
Great, thanks, Britta. Yeah, so if you think about today's session, there's kind of 2 halves to it. The first half, usually sessions go into the practical tips in the second half, but we'll cover the practical tips in the first half, and then we'll do a bit more of a a session together in the second half. So when we think about these 5 tips, of course, there's a lot of other great tips out there. People are applying it online, they're looking at Glassdoor. We wanted to fine tune some of those tips with a little bit more of conscientiousness and really kind of focusing it on that values piece, right? So in the next slide, we'll share a couple more examples of, how our creative ways of doing research for that ideal job that you're looking for that's aligned to your values. In addition to, actually, you can just go back to the previous slide, Britta. I'll just then we will talk a little bit more about leveraging your network. And I know this always comes up in these types of sessions, but we wanted to share a few tips around, how can you actually make those small steps, because sometimes it can feel very daunting. And then Britta will cover, this idea of, how do you focus on quality and not so much on the quantity, because oftentimes it feels like, we must apply to 5 jobs a day, but it takes a lot of time. No 2 systems are the same, no 2 application forms are the same. So how do you kind of really, prioritize and focus on the high value applications, really focusing on motivations so that your candidacy comes through strongly. And then just some practical tips around how do you get organized, right? Because we're getting bombarded from all sides on this process. It can be exhausting, it can be daunting. We sometimes forget things, but sometimes these quick little tips and tricks can just help us keep and stay better organized and more focused. So for the first one, do your research. Like I said, we're not going to cover some of the more generic ideas like Glassdoor and LinkedIn and Indeed. And like you all know all of those portals. Through my research, and I've done these conversations with other, groups as well. There are a couple that, I wanted to share with you as an example of what's out there right now. Me living in Berlin, my examples are a little bit more Berlin centric, but, of course, there might be a similar, portal or a resource on your side as well, wherever you all are based. So if you go to the next slide, Britta, this first one, and I love this so much because I'm a bit of I love my filters and my ways of sorting data. So in Berlin, under the federal government, under the Berlin Senate, there's a huge department that just looks at startups, because Berlin is such a big startup scene. And they have partnered with Deal Room, which is the central source for all startups to kind of look at their capital, but also their jobs, their investors, the statistics, so on and so forth. And I know that the screenshot is a little hard to read, and we have included all of these links in the back on the last slide. So don't worry, you'll get them all at the end of the session. But what I loved about this job portal is you can actually filter by, sorry, just go back. Yeah.
For example,
yeah. You can actually filter by specific values such as climate, such as sustainable cities, such as zero hunger, life on land, quality of education. And so much so that you can even say to the filter, is it a core value or a side value of the organization, right? So you're not just reading their marketing materials and their PR campaigns, but you're actually kind of going deeper into the job search, right? So this is one resource that I definitely wanted to share. And it again could be a little bit more Berlin centric, but they may have companies that are also hiring in your cities as well. If we go to the next slide, just two more examples. So the same department in Berlin also recently published a brand new, in March 2023, report on what does the job market look like, right? Sometimes we are so kind of lost in our own function, our own niche market, our own kind of network, we lose sight of what's happening in the broader macroeconomic environment, right? And that sometimes can help you fine-tune your research as well, right? So, for example, I at least always thought that larger startups are more likely to have jobs on a continuous basis, right? But if you look at that last bullet point, in the last 6 to 8 months, we had more layoffs from late stage companies compared to very small companies, right? Now, those small companies are hard to find because we don't know them, right? Until they hit the media, until they get 5 rounds of funding, we don't hear about them, which is why the database that we shared in the previous slide, that can be really helpful to kind of find those smaller opportunities with smaller organizations and companies as well. And we've included the link to this report in the back of the presentation as well. One last resource on this topic, if you go to the next slide, actually, I should say this is one of my favorites. I just discovered this last week. This organization, TBD, actually started off as a blog, and then they slowly expanded into the job posting market, and they do have jobs across Europe and across the world. And as you can see in the filter, you can also filter by specific kind of impact areas, children and youth, circular economy, clean water and sanitation. But what makes this portal really exciting is on the left side, and again, I know it's very faint to read, but they don't allow certain types of companies to even post on their website if they have been categorized as a tobacco or an arms dealer or a fossil fuel dealer. And to me, that is so powerful because I know that this portal, I don't have to worry about those companies if my values don't align with them, right? So they have this green list, orange list, and red list system, which makes it really powerful to kind of narrow your search as well. So again, all of these are at the back of the deck, so don't worry about trying to squint your eyes and reading this, or even trying to go and find it now. We'll give you all of that at the end. I think if you go to the next slide, Britta, I want to quickly cover the leveraging your network. This is the part where I know I've had a lot of conversations with friends and colleagues, and this is the hard part for many people. As you can see on this list here, practice being comfortable with just asking, whether it's a LinkedIn message at a networking event, and when you ask, whether it, be a reference or a 30-minute call, be very specific with your ask, because that way people can really help you with specific answers, right? LinkedIn has a really cool filtering system where you can filter by location, by company, and you can actually even download your entire LinkedIn contacts list into an Excel spreadsheet and really start filtering by that as well, right? So if you want to move to, say, Stockholm, Sweden, and you say, okay, let me see who all are in Stockholm, Sweden, now you can start using that data to really maximize your network as well. Consider using your personal social media as well. I know there's a lot of overlap between, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and a lot of your professional contacts could also be on your personal networks. So don't forget that portal as well. And we've included a couple of names in the last slide of resources, but proactively follow people who are known for speaking on your topics, right? Even if you don't want to connect with them, follow them, because oftentimes they post jobs, they post networks, they post events. And I'll sum up this slide before handing it over to Britta by saying your broader network is way more powerful than just generically applying online. And please just know this from me, the worst thing that they can do is say no, but at least you've asked, right? Don't go into that trap of, oh, their title seems too senior, I don't know them well enough, I'm not sure what they'll say. What if they just ask, right? Professionally ask. The worst thing that they can say is no. You have closure and you move on to the next contact. With that, Britta, I'll turn it over to you to cover the next 3 tips.
No, so thank you, Rajiv. I really love that. And I think I would love to also add something. It depends on the seniority, but sometimes we had a session with one of our mentors who's not in here today, but she talked about networking and giving snacks, and I really love that. So she said, you know, imagine you've been, you know, a child on a playground and you have snacks, then you are more attractive. So why not thinking about snacks you can give to somebody as well, so in return. So you're asking for something, but at the same time, we all have something to offer, you know, a specific topic or something you are able or you want to offer or share, and or maybe open your network, whatever it is. If you can think of person also then benefit from your experience or skills, you can always add that if you already have a clue. So it has to be in a certain framework, but just wanted to add that here. So let's go back to the tip number 3. So we talked about having less application, but you know, high quality. And I think we always think, you know, we go very often into this application and looking at jobs which can fit because of a few keywords, etc. But again, look at your values, look at what you want to achieve, and be more specific. And because a CV is something which it takes a lot of time to create, to draft. So for us, we would recommend, and I talked about it, especially with Rajiv, rather than having different CVs, create one master CV template for yourself. Have that ready and then adapt it to different job types you are looking for, and because the quality here is much more important than the quantity of applications. And I get a lot being, you know, in also executive search for a long time. I also get in the downsides of the economy and a lot of layoffs. I get a lot of initiatives, applications, and sometimes the quality, you just don't look at it. If you see it's just, you know, copy paste it, because then an employer wants, or somebody who sees your application wants to see, okay, why is this person applying for that role? Why is it? What is his or her motivation? What are the values behind it? What can she, or where is she better than anyone else? Or why does this person feel she's or her he is a right candidate? I think that has to reflect a lot. So let me just get to that slide. So create a master comprehensive CV, and then really pick for each of the application some relevant components, and then also save as a CV file for that specific role. And also I really strongly believe still in cover letters. We have a few here also coming from HR who probably think the time of cover letters kind of ended, but I think it is a very good way of looking into what is your motivation, what can you add to to the company? Where do you see yourself and the values reflected? Also about the teamwork. What did you do your research about? You know, how what are the goals of the company, this team specifically? Why do you want to be a part of it? What kind of also skills you can use from former experience and jobs, etc. So this is, in my view, a very important part as well. And yeah, so with Carol, who is also here, I forgot to even tell, Carol is the co-founder of Enderhead. We talk a lot about, and I think it's also in the Asian culture more profoundly in it, you talk not only about, you know, what have you done in the job, but also what have you achieved. So KPIs, facts, figures, to make it easier to digest for somebody who sees your application. So what have you done? What impact did you create? And the more figures and facts you have, which can prove that or can show that, the better it is. So I talked about, you know, the motivation letter or cover letter a lot. I think there are also a few phrases one can use, as Rajiv also said. We will share the link to this session and the slides, as well as a recording to you. We'll share it so you don't have to write anything here. But I think it's important to talk about your passions, what you want to aspire, where you want to, you know, what you want to learn, why you want to be part of this team. The more you can research before what about this position, and then reflect then your experience, your skills into it, the more tangible and more it feels for the recipient and the hiring managers or the HR person, already much more real, as this person has a clear idea about what he can achieve and wants to also implement. So these are a few just ideas on what to mention, and so now I would also go into the tip number 5, which is more looking into also your applications evaluation and update it. So if you apply over a couple of weeks, then it's sometimes you lose track. So why not having a nice a structure where you can then order your jobs you applied for or you feel fit for, then evaluate, how much does it fit to my passion, to learning development, to your future growth, to compensation, to flexibility, health. And then you have a very good structure to be able to, at the end, if you get more different job offers, then to evaluate again. But you also have a good structure to track during the application process. So if you think this is helpful, also we would love your feedback. So always, if you can relate to one or the other tip more or less, you can also share here. So please do so. As these are just ideas we, Rajiv and I, collected over years of experience, and so this group would probably enjoy. But we also learn, and you can also share about what you liked. So, and this is what we are going to do now. Or Rajiv, do you want to add something on some of the tips I mentioned?
Yeah, thanks for covering those, Britta. It looks like when you and I were planning the session, I loved the last one that you just shared, the weighing of the different options, because there are, pros and cons, and there's, how do you balance it all? And I think applying a bit of a weight system can really give you a bit of a objective evaluation as opposed to, just kind of going with the first thing that you see. I also want to share the once you start putting all your applications in a spreadsheet, I highly encourage you all to keep a track of, what date did you apply? How did you apply? What did you hear back from them? Did you get an auto reject from the applicant tracking system, from the recruiting software? Did you get an email from, so that also helps you follow up with the recruiters, because that also looks good oftentimes. What I will say is when I did this in 2014, when I took my gap year, I think I had about 70 or 80 line items in my spreadsheet. And when I did that, I found a very interesting correlation. The 7 or 8 jobs that actually progressed in first round, second round, maybe third round and fourth round of interviews were all the jobs that I got through personal referrals or personal contacts and professionals, right? The remaining 65, 70 were all online, submit the resume and apply. And most of them were after 2 months, sorry, great profile, but we're not interested. So again, going back to the earlier point of amplifying your professional networks, especially now we're seeing a lot more on LinkedIn, people are sharing each other's profiles. So I think there's definitely power in tracking that. And then once you get the offers and you have different options, using the tool that Britta just shared under tip number 5, I think that's going to be really powerful. And Britta, while you were sharing, I also just added in the chat that folks can share what's been working for them and not working for them in the chat. I think we are about 10 minutes behind schedule, so we won't have time to do the whiteboard for this one, but we can do it in the chat pod, and then we can start kind of discussing. But yeah, to the participants on the line, feel free to share in the chat once, as you reflect on these 5 tips, what resonates, what has worked for you in the past. If you have something that's been really helpful to you, please share with your peers here. We grow by learning from each other. So, if you have anything in the chat, please definitely share as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Go ahead, Britta.
So back to where we are. So we now want to go into, identify and use transferable skills. Why is that so important? Because, especially if you go and relaunch your career, you reflect not only on what you've done in the past and what could be used in the future, but you also want to look at all the skills you probably in a gap, that can be a sabbatical, that can be in a parental leave situation, or if you want to reinvent yourself, go into a different field, you also have to think about your skills and connect them to new roles and new paths. And that's why it's so important to have a certain awareness also of your skills and where you can also use them, where also in other positions or other companies, in other contexts, these skills can be used. And that's sometimes not so obvious or so easy. And I think that's where it also is important that we work together, or you also take a friend or somebody you know well, or your coach or your mentor, to reflect on some of your skills, which then will help you to look into the pathways you want to achieve and think about, okay, how can I use this skill? I think that's a very important part. So first of all, identify some of your strongest skills, try to link them to, jobs or roles you are interested in, and also think about your some of we often say in a relaunch that there is this fear that a lot of people will look into your parental leave or your sabbatical as a gap, but don't, why not shifting this mindset into, okay, what did you not miss out during that time, but what did you gain? What did you gain in a parental leave or in a sabbatical where you traveled the world? A lot, I guess. So, but you have first of all to envision that. So you gain new qualities your employer may be very interested in. So, but you have to convince him, or first of all, you have to see that. And for example, Simon Sinek saying parenting, who really talks a lot about leadership, and is the inventor of the why, the how, and the what. And he said that parenting actually is the closest thing to leadership if we look at this part. And as a mother of two and being an entrepreneur and having been in for quite some time, I never looked at it as like that, but it's true. You are responsible for a human being. This human being would die. So how can it be more key that you have to lead the way here, and there are a lot of other things comparable. So I think that's something very important. Also, if you travel the world, your cultural intelligence will grow, and so forth and so forth. A third thing is we covered a bit. Don't only put responsibilities in your CV, but also talk about your achievements. What have you done? Even also during a gap, some are sometimes, very engaged in some schools or preschools, and what if they had more of official roles there? What have you done, and what was the impact? I think you should mention. And then it is very important then to translate your skills, as I said, in a different context. For example, if you want to, shift it into another industry. So for that, Rajiv also prepared a very nice graph where it's more obvious how one can translate, what kind of options there are to translate your skills, and what a thought process which could help you translating your skills. So would you like to take over, Rajiv?
Sure. Thanks, Britta. Before I do that, there is one interesting question in the chat that maybe you can help answer, which is, or maybe even Carolina, how to sell parental leadership skills. I know that's a bit of a, that in itself could be one entire session for this curriculum, but any quick examples of how you might actually do that?
Yeah, I think, first of all, thank you for the question. It's a great question. We also have included a little interview with Simon Sinek in one of the links. But there are a lot of things. It's this responsibility things, and you being responsible for a human being, but also multitasking, taking decisions fast and regularly. Is another one. I think this decision taken on a constant way, and quick decisions where sometimes it's key. Do I go to the doctor 38 degrees or 40 degrees? It's sometimes a question of life and death. Multitasking. I think you Curiosity, creativity is another one. We have one of our mentors also, and I shared the link also in this links. She talks about the skills needed in 2025. I think the top skills, and creativity, for example, is one of them. And I think we learn as parents from our children at some age in terms of creativity. I learned from my daughter now TikTok, but also in terms of new approaches. You have to reinvent yourself because you don't know sometimes. So I think there's a lot one can look at, but we could. It's a very interesting topic, so we could also think about having a separate session, even looking at specifically parental skills you gained during parental leave, and you can then translate. But Rajiv, why don't you now go ahead and we can look at your grid you did.
Thank you. Yeah, this is something I had conceptualized a couple of years ago, but never actually kind of put it on paper. 8-9 years ago, when I started my career actually in internal audit, and I wanted to get out of internal audit, right? And I wanted to get into some form of consulting. And so, the question kept coming up, if I'm going from internal audit to consulting, should I still look for consulting within the transport industry because I started my career with FedEx? Should I look in the airline industry? Or can I jump completely into a different sector, different function, different industry? And that becomes that much harder, right? You have to convince the recruiter on that many more hurdles of experience, right? And so I think there was a question earlier around how do you start the process around even thinking about, where that research starts. And I think this could be an interesting framework on just figuring out where that research starts, right? Which quadrant do you find yourself in at this junction in life, right? Are you happy with the same industry, same function? You just want a different company? That's a different conversation. Are you love the function so much, like sales, you love competitive numbers, you love getting your goals met, but you want to try a different industry. So you move from, consumer goods to tech. That's a whole like industry switch. Or you say, you know what, I love, the fast moving consumer goods. I love these types of products, but I'm tired of sales. I want to try something different in the industry. And that may also maybe enable you to stay with the same company or a different company. But you have that level of flexibility to talk to the recruiter and say, look, I have industry experience here. Now I want to pivot into a different skill set, or I'm keeping my same skill set, but I want to explore that in a different industry, and all of the above, right? So with that in mind, so this example that I'm just giving right now, if you enjoy sales, but now your life has changed a little bit and you're not committed to meeting, monthly goals, because as we all know in sales, end of the month, you're working 40 hours a day, end of the year, you're working crazy hours, but you enjoy that competitive nature of sales, right? So Britta, if you go to the next slide where the example is, maybe some of those tangential skills for sales are you go into nonprofit fundraising, right? You help a nonprofit raise funds. It's the same skill set. You're asking for money, you're convincing stakeholders, you're selling your organization. It's the same skill set in a different impact organization, right? Or you say, you know what, I enjoy sales a lot. I just don't want these goals and metrics anymore. I love working with salespeople, but I'm going to go into a sales L&D function, right? With my 7 years of sales experience, I'm going to now help younger sales associates get better at their job, right? So I'm going to work with my company or another company and find a way to be an L&D trainer for the sales department. And by the way, big companies have a massive sales L&D department, right? So, or in some very large organizations, I know right now recruiting is a bit of a slowdown, but a lot of recruiting functions are also organized like sales functions. Recruiters have goals, they have targets, they have, the fill time, they have to fill roles in like less than 30 days. That same level of competitiveness is in recruiting as well, right? But it takes you away from the sales department and puts you in the talent acquisition department. But the philosophy and the goals are very similar. So keeping this example in mind, keeping everything that Britta just covered about, transferable skills, how do you amplify your skills? If you have a gap year, or if you have a gap in your career, what skills do you acquire then? this is how we're going to bring this all together in a interactive activity. Then for that, Britta's going to have to stop sharing. But before we do that, I'll just quickly cover the instructions, which is we're going to launch the whiteboard function of Zoom, which I love. I love that function a lot. And we're going to use the post-it feature. And if you want to launch the whiteboard, Britta, we can just walk everyone through the example. Yeah. Now, if you, by now there should be a whiteboard in front of you, and on your left side, you'll see a long kind of strip panel.
Yeah.
Under the letter T, you'll see a little sticky note, like a square with a little triangle in it. Just click on that and bring it into the main whiteboard. And in that sticky note, just type in a skill that you are very proud of yourself, but you want to leverage that skill in another environment, right? It could be like the example that I just shared. It could be, what are my tangential skills to that particular skill, right? So if you want to just add one, and I think Kara is already starting, drag a post-it note and just type a skill that you want your peers on this call to help you with. And the peers, if you see a skill that you can relate to and you want to contribute, drag another colored post-it note and put it next to that one and just type in your response to that skill, right? So you're basically doing peer coaching here on skills, right? So any questions about the instructions? I know it's a little clunky, but when it works really well. So let's give it a shot.
Why don't we give an example, Rajiv, and then we
go ahead.
can follow your lead.
Yeah, so it looks like, I think it was Britta who typed in sales in the yellow post-it note. So I'm going to take a blue one, and I'm just, like my previous example, I'm just going to type in fundraising, right? For that particular skill set as an example. And then I'll just put it next to her sales contribution. Now that was an easy example, but I just wanted to paint that example. And now let's all kind of participate together, and feel free to share a skill that you want to hold on to, you're proud of it, you want that in your next role, but you're still trying to explore what that skill means in other areas. And we will collectively, contribute into this skills ecosphere. Okay, so we have a few popping up here. Yeah, and feel free to use all the real estate that we have here so we can kind of spread out in the whiteboard. Okay, somebody put speaker moderator, somebody put connecting to people.
Rajiv, while everyone is adding, we also have an additional observation and also a question that, you mentioned all the 4 quadrants of different stages of career change, or not stages, but different type of career change. This person also mentioned, I've added to the chat, that, how to sell also when you move from a corporate sector to an NGO, or if that's the intention, or from research to corporate. I think that could be an interesting discussion that we can brainstorm also from this exercise.
Yes, absolutely. So in a nutshell, I'll say, if you are currently in a corporate environment and nonprofit work is on your radar in the next few years, you can start by, of course, somebody said volunteering during your parental leave or your gap time, which is very hard to do sometimes with timing, but of course you can do it now online as well. But you can consider joining nonprofit organizations as a board member. For the last 6 years, I've never worked in a nonprofit, but for the last 5 years, I've served on the board of a LGBTQ refugee nonprofit. And I've learned so much about how to run a nonprofit because I'm on the board and I talk to the ED every day. I could use that in my next conversation if I ever wanted to pivot into a nonprofit organization, right? If it's a direct skill, so if you're the director of communications with a corporation and a large NGO is looking for a director of communications, that's an easy transfer. You just have to show your passion and your interest in what the nonprofit is doing, because at that point, it's not just the skill, but it's also the passion for the sector work. And I think the same applies to public sector or academia as well. So again, on that matrix, the closer you are to that same, that easier it is. But if you go up one or right one, it's a little bit harder. But if you're trying to go completely diagonal, that's a whole separate conversation, right? And that takes a lot of convincing, but that's where actually networking helps. I have seen people make some remarkable jumps, and I'll quickly share an example on that. The chief people officer of Amazon, Beth Galetti, was actually with me at FedEx many years ago in Belgium, right? If you look at her background, she has engineering and IT, right? That's all she's done in her entire career with FedEx. And next thing you know, she leaves and she joins Amazon in their as their head of HR, right? It's like, you have no HR experience, right? That's what we all were thinking back in the day. But maybe it was the network, maybe it was the operational industry, right? So from FedEx to Amazon Logistics, it's a similar kind of people environment. So maybe she used that as an argument to make that move. All to say, it's very possible. You just have to find that one common string to kind of talk about, and then make your way through that, right? And that could come from networking, that could come from a specific thing that you've done, so on and so forth. So hopefully that helps with the NGO question.
We also found, I mean, most of you might have already heard the previous head of HR from Unilever moved to Chanel as their global CEO with no experience, so I agree with you here. Sometimes it's all a matter of putting things together and going as close as you can to that next goal. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Rajiv.
Yeah.
So we are collecting quite now more and more. So I think, why is that important? Because yeah, we can talk, and for each of us it's sometimes difficult because you need a bit of feedback, you need a bit of brainstorming. So also this is now our group, and please make use of it. We are a community. We want you to motivate you to use this group. Also exchange more with people you found interesting today. Also, exchange some LinkedIn profiles or numbers, and reach out afterwards. But you can also do it with, friends and peers somewhere to think it through. Where your next step could be, and sometimes can be surprising. And even if you are at a current job, sometimes it's companies also realize they have to open up more and become more agile. So sometimes they are even happy. We had a workshop with Atos a bit ago, and they wanted to go into a more agile organization, and that every one of the departments would share with others about what they do already opened up, because sometimes you don't know what the other person in another department does, and then you also learn how can you help this person to do an even better job. That's also one thing we often forget, and there is a huge benefit for companies to look into that. And we also have one of our clients, Cosnova, where they did a couple of years ago complete the second most senior level, would have the opportunity to switch. And one of our persons we talked to, she is now the director of HR, or head of HR and organizational development. She was in logistics and supply chain before. So, and she's saying, okay, I didn't know anything about HR, but I knew our people because I grew with that company, and that I knew how the structure and the processes worked. So that helped me a lot to understand what is needed. So can be surprising sometimes. But what do we have here? Emotional intelligence, innovation, labs, yeah, facilitation. We have beautiful also skills here combined, isn't it? Networking, sales, speaker, moderator, life skill coaching, to business partner. It's lovely to see.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see so just to the earlier instructions, right? We are starting to see clusters around a specific, skill or competency, right? So you have tangential ideas. Of course, if there's a bigger group, then this really kind of becomes quite, comprehensive. But this is also another thing that you all can do with your personal networks, right? You can post a question on LinkedIn to say, look, I like these skills. How have you all seen these skills being, taken one step further? Engage folks in the conversation. And when people start commenting, you can then reach out to them and say, hey, can we talk for 30 minutes? I would love to understand how this answer goes from sales to something else, right? That's how you also then build your personal brand. So it all kind of goes hand in hand. But it's a great way to just pause and think, okay, I'm good at something, but there's something about it that is no longer good for me, which is the reverse. And how do I take it one step further, right? So I love the love for technology. That's great. For the person who put love for technology, maybe you can elaborate a little bit, because technology is that weird one that becomes an industry, but also a function. So maybe that can be fine-tuned a little bit more. Because now when people say I work in tech, I never know if they mean tech industry, tech company, or tech function, right? You could be doing marketing for a startup that does tech work, but you're doing still marketing. So just be a little bit more clear with clarity around, what is that specific skill that you're trying to solve for?
Yeah, I think the reason why it's vague, I actually added it myself, was because when we first started, and I know I had three things I love to do. So one is I love implementing new things. So rather than technology, I think it was the idea of challenging the status quo, implementing new things with the support of technology as a tool.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I love helping people learn, and I love connecting with people. So
Amazing.
the three came into a quadrant, intersection rather together. Yeah. And I think then my career previously in HR broadened 180 degrees, right? Or really widened. And I can see a few things here. I just wanted to also add, and then I let also the rest also share their part, is that, the coaching skills, which we see quite a lot here, in fact, is a great skill for many things, including leadership, including sales, because sales is an education process as well, which I didn't know until very late in my career. So the transferable skills from coaching into a different areas is huge, something that we can definitely use to sell it as well. All leaders needs to learn how to coach. In fact, that's what we talk about, the future of leadership. So just to end with that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Carol. I'll just quickly add, for me, for those that I actually put coaching as a post-it here, maybe spend also a couple of minutes to think about, what does coaching mean for you? Coaching is also a very formal profession. And if that's something you want to get into, a lot of clients will want you to have international coaching certifications, right? Because coaching is that formal of a process. But in your mind, if you're actually thinking about either mentorship or guidance or advisory or consulting, just be mindful of how we're using the word coaching, because you don't want to run into a problem where you define that as your next step, but you may need another year to kind of, train in that field of work, right? It's like counseling. It's a very formal profession. So just be mindful about which element of coaching you like, and what does that mean for you in your job search. I know we have 2 more minutes, so Britta, I will turn it back to you. We can save this is saved on the back end, so we will in the slide deck and then send it out.
Yeah. We will share this with you afterwards as well. It should be an example what you can also do, with some friends or peers or other people, but use this, especially if it comes to skills you still want to learn how to use it in a different context. So thank you all for also contributing to this whiteboard as it is now, and it looks already nice. I'm sure it would look even more interesting and fuller if we would have a bit more time. But I will close now and excuse me, share again the slide. Can you all see them again?
Yeah.
Okay. So this was our exercise now, and as we, looked into research latest industries today as a third C, third part of the 3 Cs, we wanted also to give you again a structure on why we are doing it. It's a 10-step process, and this is the number 3. We're going to have create your personal brand as the next one in April, then a depth CV, LinkedIn profile, and then our Globally Together Forum, which will be first time as one of our companies, Cosnova, is going to host it or facilitate with us in their beautiful offices. We just launched it, so we are going to have a hybrid first event on the 23rd of June. But the next one we are looking at is going from Clarify into Create your personal brand, will be on the 28th of April. So after all the Easter break is over, etc. And we are now also going to invite somebody who is a professional in personal branding. We will disclose probably next week with you, who is going to join us here. And then the May session will be again on a Monday at 6 o'clock. It's going to be about CV and CV preparation, and also LinkedIn. So here are all the helpful links we are going to share. So we divided it into articles, resources, videos, and learnings, as well as job portals and lists. You can, look at and getting inspired, hopefully, or getting a few ideas, or, dig deeper. I also added our link here. The parenting is the closest to this. Is the YouTube videos from Simon Sinek to think about. We got this question about how to use parental skills and translate them into a job. You will find a few tips here as well. And if we do those sessions all free sessions during this year, but if you want to really dive deeper in one of the areas you feel you need a bit more support, please use our coaching and tailored coaching packages on different intensities, and we offer also 20% discount until the 2nd of April. If you are interested, reach out or look at our website. Before I end, I also wasn't there, something was missing.
This idea that feel free to share this with your colleagues, your friends.
So we will share, especially this the slides, but also then the recording. You can share it or use this community again to get some ideas, brainstorm. But you can also think about your network, and if you find it useful, also share it with people you think could benefit from it. And you can also reach out to Rajiv, myself, or Carolina here, all on the call and in the session. If you have further questions, or you are interested to learn more about And Ahead, or what Rajiv does and how he reinvented himself, and also his D&I expertise is incredible. So here are also his contact details, also the LinkedIn, his email address, and I think then for today, we can't thank you enough for your time and your interest, and also taking part and adding and sharing your the skills you are looking at, your values, and we wish you a good rest of the evening. And I would say now it's up to you, Rajiv. Do you have something to add here as well at the closing stage?
Just a heartfelt gratitude to you all for all the work that you do at And Ahead, and to all the participants for carving some time out and joining us today. And thank you, and hope to see you all again.
Yeah, thanks. And bye-bye. See you hopefully in April, and all have a good Easter break for those who are going to be on a break or holidays. It's a long one this time. I think 3 weeks we have here in Hessen.
Thanks a lot. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for coming
everyone.
in.